Hey friends, it's Hope, and today I am here to do my June wrap-up and my July TBR. I'm going to quickly just fly through what I read in June and then just briefly tell you guys what I plan to read in July. I did do a couple of non-spoiler book reviews and I will link those down below in the description box, so if you guys want to hear more of my in-depth thoughts about some of the books that I read, you guys can go check out those videos. But to just go ahead and start off this wrap-up, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about the two books that I read at the very beginning of the month. The first book that I read and finished was Gathering Darkness by Morgan Rhodes. This is the third book in her YA fantasy Fallen Kingdoms series. I really enjoyed it. This book didn't leave on a cliffhanger like I kind of predicted it would, so I'm not really in a rush to read Frozen Tides, but it's totally okay. I ended up rating this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and if you guys haven't started this series, I highly recommend you guys doing so. Another book that I read at the very beginning of the month was Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover, and you guys know how much I love Coho. I love all of her books and the characters, and I was really hoping that this book was going to just pull me out of my 5-star reading slump. Unfortunately, it didn't. I ended up rating this book a 4 out of 5 stars. I couldn't just get over the theme of cheating in this book. I mean, don't get me wrong, I absolutely adored Sydney and Ridge. I thought that they were fantastic characters. Colleen Hoover just knows how to write those characters that you fall in love with, but just the overall theme of cheating and kind of like the reoccurrence of cheating in this book just kind of drove me a little bit crazy. And then after that, I listened to Let's Pretend This Never Happened by Jenny Lawson. I listened to Furiously Happy the month before, and I knew I wanted to listen to this book as well. I didn't like it as much as Furiously Happy, so I ended up rating this a 3 out of 5 stars. This book in particular follows her through childhood all the way up until kind of the stories that we get in Furiously Happy. The next book I read, I actually did a buddy read with my friend Katie over at Life Between Words, and we read Second Chance Summer by Morgan Matson. I was also expecting this book to kind of pull me out of my 5-star reading slump, but I just felt that our characters just weren't very likable through most of the book. I just didn't really feel attached to them. And for that reason, I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. Honestly, I think the saving grace of this whole book was Henry. I thought he was absolutely adorable. He was level-headed. But with the girl characters, I found them to be very whiny, really lacked communication skills, so therefore I ended up rating it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Killing Sarai by J.A. Ridmersky, I believe. I ended up rating this book a 4 out of 5 stars. If you guys are interested in picking up a book that revolves around the topic of falling in love with your captor and your captor being like this bad mama jamma, I highly suggest picking this one up. I think this is considered new adult. I don't know, but I'm trying to decide if I'm going to continue on with the series. I did rate it a 4 out of 5 stars, so I did enjoy it. I just don't know if I'm going to commit to this series. The next book I picked up and read pulled me out of my 5-star reading slump. I was so overjoyed when this happened, and that book was Amor Amor by the Ritchie sisters. This is a new adult book following an aerial acrobat Vegas show, and our main character goes to Vegas to try out to be in the show called Amor Amor, and it just follows her as she is trying to get into the show and what happens to her through the next couple of months as she's living in Vegas and trying to figure things out. And I really adored it. I talked a lot about this book in my Best in Books video, which will be linked down below, so go check that out. But guys, if you like new adults and you're looking for a good summer read, or really anytime read, definitely check this one out. It is wonderful. The next two books that I read I got from the library. They're both pretty new young adult contemporary books. I did do non-spoiler book reviews over these books. The first book was If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo. I ended up rating this a 3 out of 5 stars, and the other one was The Last Time We Were Us by Leah Conan, and I rated this one a 4 out of 5 stars. And then on recommendation from my coworker Danielle, she told me that I needed to read Truth or Beard by Penny Reed, and I went ahead and picked that one up as well. I did talk a little bit about this book in my Best in Books video, but it is considered new adult. It's the first book in the Winston Brothers companion series. It was full of comedic lines and lovable characters and some really great action that I just wasn't expecting at all. I ended up rating this book a 4 out of 5 stars. A typical story of a girl coming back into town. She was always in love with one of the Winston brothers, and when she thinks that she sees him at a Halloween party and she kind of gives him a couple smooches and then realizes it's his twin brother, things start to go down. And guys, this story was so very fun. The last book that I read this month, I read it when I went on my beach trip last week, and that was Summer Island by Kristen Hanna. I read a few books by Kristen Hanna, so I kind of knew what to expect going into this. It kind of pains me to say this, but Kristen Hanna writes some really unlikable characters. I find that as I read the books that she writes, that I don't really enjoy the characters until the very end when they kind of redeem themselves. And this book was no exception. It's about a mother and a daughter who are estranged, and a lot of things have happened in both of their lives that kind of kept them apart. An accident happens and a very close friend is dying. That just kind of like brings them together and really pushes them to reconnect. So really for the longest time, I didn't care for the mom or the daughter. I really enjoyed the two side characters of this book, which is pretty typical for me as a reader when I read Kristen Hanna books. But guys, the ending of this book had me bawling. I was on the beach and I had to go run in the ocean, and so people wouldn't be freaked out because I was crying so hard, because the ending was just so beautiful, just touched me so much. It just brought me to tears. So with that said, I ended up rating it a 3 out of 5 stars. All right, well, let's get on to the 4 books that I plan on reading in July. I'm going to be traveling back home to Missouri at the end of the month, so I really don't know how much I'll be able to read, but I do have a few books here that I do plan on reading and finishing, 2 of which I've already started. And the first one is The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Audier, and my friends have been freaking out that I haven't finished this yet because if you can see my little book tag right here, my bookmarker, which is actually a Walmart receipt, I have like 40 pages left. I don't know why I haven't picked it up and finished it. It's kind of like at the climax of the story, but I plan on finishing it this 4th of July weekend, and I'm sure I'm going to love it, and I'm kind of expecting to cry because this story is making me real nervous right now. And then another book that I am reading is actually a reread, and this is my favorite Rainbow Rowell book, and it is Attachments. I absolutely love this book. If you guys don't know anything about it, it's an unconventional love story that revolves around an office setting, and it's so relatable. It really speaks to me right now. I completely relate to these characters, and I plan on doing a non-spoiler book review when I do finish this book. I just absolutely love it, and I am about halfway through this read. And then the last book that I plan on reading this month is Sea of Tranquility, and I'm reading this because my coworkers Danielle and Blair gave a really high recommendation for this book. I know I've said this before, but my coworkers are big readers and they really influence my TBRs. Probably half of the books that I've read within like the last 4 months are because of them, and they highly recommended this book to me. And then after they were like raving about it, I saw that Colleen Hoover read it and really loved it as well. It's told in dual perspectives. Our 2 main characters are Josh and Nastia, and Nastia has kind of taken this vow of silence after something traumatic has happened to her in the past. So of course the reader doesn't know, and I'm about 20% of the way through the book and I still don't know what that is, but we're slowly starting to learn a little bit about her past. And then we have Josh, who is recently emancipated. He lost his whole family when he was really young. He's really the person that I think Nastia is going to connect herself to and probably get her to open up. And Josh is kind of like this invisible boy, so I think that they're really going to help each other out in multiple ways. So I'm excited to see where the story is going to take me. But yeah, I know there are a couple readathons happening in July. I don't know if I'll be participating in them, but if I do, I will make a TBR for those readathons. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up for this video. Let me know down below what you guys are planning on reading this month. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'm sure I will see you guys soon. Bye!